Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before jumping to the presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Aldyar Saputra. I'm from Bandung Institute of Technology and Rennes School of Business. So today I'm going to be presenting about my research with the title of How Does Beginner's Career Start Designing Their Smart Financial Plan Strategy in Prescribing, Purchasing, or Renting a Property in Indonesia. So initiated by the overviews, before jumping to the main discussion, I'm going to be telling you about the table of contents that we're going to talk about today. There consists of 5 main points. The first one is the introduction, followed by the literature review, research methods, results and finding, and conclusion. And starting from the background, there are 3 main points that are triggering this issue. The first one is the increasing of property price. As we can see and so we can perceive that the average month salary of the employees in Indonesia is really far away compared to the price of the property, and also the existence of the property is keep diminishing, and so it makes the property prices increasing. The second one is the diminishing amount of land for the property ownership, as we know that property is one of the best investments for people to expand. So there are emerging more than one people that keep expanding or buying a property more than once. So one people could own more than one property, which results in the diminishing amount of land or the existence of the property itself. And the third one is also correlated with the previous explanation, is people who just commence their career needs to find an alternative to approach the property, since the land and the existence it's almost extinct. They need to find an alternative to purchase, not only purchase but find an alternative of purchase, which could be rent, for the solution of their career, of their beginning of their career. So based on those problem statements and backgrounds, these are the core of the research question that is mainly going to be targeting to answer, is the how do career beginners decide on compatible advantages and valuable property to settle, especially to alleviate their daily activities in Indonesia. To support, there are 4 literature reviews that are correlated with this research. The first one is the definition of the property itself. So it is possible to say that the property includes both the ground and the building it sits on, in addition to the structure itself. The second one is explanation about the financial planning. So it's the process of setting goals, rules, programs, and budgets that correspond with an organization's financial operations, or it could be a personal financial planning. So the third one is about the rent itself. That could be an alternative beside purchasing in Indonesia, since nowadays people tend to avoid a high price of the property that already mentioned before. And also the last one is property valuation. So it's more about how to evaluate a property, since it's a estate investment that financially really worth it. So before approach a property, we could forecast and see the market price to pick and find the most suitable and appropriate property to settle down. So based on those literature review, there are 3 hypotheses that formulated. The first one is the preference for ownership of property is determined by career beginner's monthly salary. The second one is preference for ownership property is determined by career beginner's financial budgeting plan. And the third one is the preference for ownership of property is determined by career beginner's mortgage, loan interest, time value of money, and continuous payment, which could be merged or simplified to property terms and condition. These are the visualization or the picture of the theoretical thinking from the hypothesis. So there are 3 main independent variables. The first one is salary, financial planning, and property condition, which will be investigating to find the relationship to the dependent variables, which is property ownership preference. So this research will use a quantitative approach, since it's a deductive research, and also the data collection using a questionnaire form, which already invent or created in Google Form and will be scattered or distributed through the social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and any other social media platforms. And there are mainly 6 items of questions which are formulated in short questions, multiple questions such as yes or no questions, and a Likert scale 1 to 5 from the response that already collected. And there are 102 respondents or samples that already collected. This number are referring to the guidelines of how to determine the sample size from non-probability samples. Since the population is unknown, by using these samples, the result is the samples could be lower than 100. So 102 respondents is already enough to conduct this research. And also to analyze the data, it will exert a descriptive statistic, a validity, reliability test, and a multilinear regression method, which is supported by the SPSS program. So these are the results and the finding. Starting from the validity test, we are already testing 11 questions, and there are 1 variables that are not valid since the R table is higher than the R value. The R table is gained or retrieved from the fundamental table that is already written. So since we are using 102 samples, we're taking the R table from the 100 samples, and the value is 0.195. And also checking the reliability test, there are 9 questions that counted as reliable variables, since the alpha is greater than 0.7 from the fundamental, and the amount of the Cron-Batch alpha is 0.8035. And this is the descriptive analytics to find the minimum, maximum, mean, and the standard deviation. As we can see here, the maximum value of these variables that already tested is 6, and the minimum value is 0. And the highest mean is 4.4, and the highest standard deviation is 1.277, which could be indicated higher. The standard deviation means that the variables are more scattered and not only confined in the mean value. And analyzing the multilinear regressions. First one is analyzing the salary, and according to t-value, which is 0.36, is lower than the t-table, which already from the fundamental is 1.986. And also perceiving the p-value is lower than 5%, is higher than 5%. So it indicates that there are no correlation between salary and property preference. And for the financial budgeting, according to t-value and p-value is not also indicating there are no correlations, since the t-value is lower and the p-value is higher than 5%. So there are no correlation between financial budgeting and property preference. And for the property condition, according to t-value is 2.141, which is greater than 1.986. It indicates there are a correlation between these variables, and also perceiving the p-value, which is lower than 5%, which is around 3.5%. We could conclude that there's a relationship between property condition and property preference. So this is the conclusion and limitation. Among those 3 hypotheses, there are only 1 hypothesis that tests are succeed. So the property condition is affecting the variables of property preference instead of salary, and financial budgeting is not really impacting the property preference. And it could be concluded to answer the core question that a beginner could define a compatible, valuable, and advantageous property by perceiving the property condition first as their financial plan. So it could be like the time value of money and any other aspects. And also for the limitations, the main hindrances or impediments during the progress of this research is mainly placed on a small sample size. So it's really hard to determine whether the variable is valid, is reliable, and there is a relationship between the variables and also the sample control. So since we scatter it to a random people, we also put specific requirements for the eligible people to fill the questionnaire, but perhaps or probably the people who's filling the questions or the survey is not really eligible for that survey. So it makes we got some difficulties in analyzing the research, and also finding the most appropriate respondents. It's correlated with the previous explanation, so it's kind of difficult to find the appropriate designated respondents to fill out the questions. And that's all from me. Thank you for your consideration and your time for paying attention to my presentation, and thank you.